Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Draft Gym TV. As always, you are joined by me, Andy, FPL Teach Mode, and today we are going to be looking at Group D of the Euro competition. Now, obviously, we are going to be talking about FanTeam as well, the Daily Fantasy Euro 2020 competition, £1 million guaranteed prize pool. And we're going to try and help you win a little bit of money. And we are going through all of the predicted lineups for all of the teams at the moment. We have done Group A, Group B, Group C. If you haven't looked at those yet, give them a watch. We really did try hard to make sure we're giving you as much info as possible. But today it is all about Group D. And as you can see below me, there it is. It is made up of England, Croatia, Scotland and the Czech Republic. Obviously, a lot of people are excited about this group because England are in it, and we will be getting to those immediately, don't you worry. Before we do, though, I must say, make sure you do go onto our website, draftgym.com. We have tons of fantastic content about FPL, about the Euro competition that's coming up soon, and all about FanTeam. So make sure you go on there. It really will help you win some money. I'd never heard of it not that long ago. I've joined and I'm writing for them, and I have earned a lot more money than I did before because of all the expert knowledge that's on there. So let's have a look and get started. Now, before I jump into England, I will say, based on the odds that I've seen, it looks like favourites at the moment are England, which I think is self-explanatory. And then it looks like Croatia, then Czech Republic, and then Scotland in that order. So if we jump into the favourites first, the only team I didn't have to do any homework on, England. Now, they are favourites. They're favourites for a reason. They've got a fantastic squad going into this tournament. Some would say it's the best young squad full of potential that we've had in a long time. We've also got a lot of players that have done incredibly well for their teams this year, coming from lots of different teams as well, which I think I quite like, actually. The players, I would say, are slightly overpriced. I think in the group stages we could do quite well. But knowing what England are like and knowing the hype that they come into every tournament with, they don't usually perform to their abilities. So I think if you're paying a premium for those players, you want to make sure that they're definitely going to perform. I still have my its and buts about England, to be honest. The way I'm going to be playing it with England, I am going to be avoiding them, which sounds horrible, but I'm going to be avoiding them in all but one of my entries. And in that other entry, I'm going to be it's coming home mode, and I'm going to be just concentrating on England. I will have those three players I'm going to talk about today who I would target, because I just always worry. It's always the same thing. We always hype them up so much, and they never do as well as we think they're going to do. So if we're looking at some of the players now, Pickford in goal for 7 million. I mean, I can see us potentially getting 2 clean sheets in these groups. I think we'll keep a clean sheet against Scotland, but you never know. It's the old enemy. They could score against us. Against Croatia, I think is going to be a really tight game. It could be 0-0, could be just a 1-0 win. It could easily be 1-1 as well. So I think it will be tight. Obviously, if it's 1-1 or if they manage to get something against us, that's not great for the clean sheet. Czech Republic, I think, will most likely keep a clean sheet against. And then you're thinking 7 million for a goalkeeper where the opposition is a little bit dodgy, I think is a bit too much personally. When you look across the back line, the player that sticks out for me is John Stones. John Stones at 6 million. He's had an incredible season at Man City. He's also had an incredibly good goal scoring season at Man City as well. I think for 6 million, that is a snip. I really like the look of that. He's a versatile player. He can get forward when he wants to, and he has done very, very well attacking set pieces this year. So I think for me, if I was picking along this back line, John Stones would be the one that I would be going for, mainly due to price, but also due to the potential of what he could do. I do think he might score you maybe a goal, maybe 2 goals in this tournament, depending on how far we get. So I do quite like him. Now, Luke Shaw, I think will be the starting left back, but there is a bit of competition from Chilwell, who of course has just won the Champions League as well. I love Luke Shaw. I think Luke Shaw has been absolutely fantastic this year. I think he will most likely continue that form for England if he gets to play. I think Chilwell hasn't been quite as good attacking wise, which I think is why Luke Shaw will get the nod. But I think, again, for 6.5 million, I struggle to see how he is going to impact games more than someone like John Stones at 6 million. For that extra 0.5 million, he very well could do, especially with our narrow midfield. But I like Luke Shaw as an option, but I find it hard to justify the 0.5 million extra. And talking about that, Harry Maguire next to John Stones, this England team relies on Harry Maguire an awful lot. He's the leader at the back. He's an incredibly good player. But again, for 0.5 million, I think this is still where I'm looking at Stones. And then Walker, 7 million for Kyle Walker. For a player that I don't think consistently gets attack and returns, I don't think he's worth 1 million more than John Stones. I think he's one of the most nailed players in this team, because if we do play a back four, he's going to be there. If we play a back five, he will definitely be there as well, playing in the back three. So I think, again, for 1 million more, I would be all over John Stones personally. Now, as we move up, sorry, you will notice that Jordan Henderson is in there. I am of the impression I don't think Jordan Henderson is going to start. He has missed almost 3 months with injury. He's only just come back. He was named on the bench in Liverpool's last game. He's 7 million. I wouldn't be touching him at all. He's not somebody that I look at in an England shirt and think he's the one that's going to be getting you those assists and goals. So for me, I wouldn't be touching him at all. I think it would most probably, if he isn't playing, it would be someone like Jude Bellingham in the middle, which is absolutely fine. Bellingham's an absolutely class player. So if it is Bellingham, then he's definitely worth having a look at. Next to him, however, you've got Declan Rice, who will be our holding midfielder. Excellent season at West Ham, 6.5 million. Wouldn't touch him at all. That is not his role. His role is not to get forward in link-up play. His role, not link-up play, finish-off play. But for 6.5 million, I wouldn't be touching him. The interesting one is in the middle of that pitch, Mason Mount. He is an excellent player. He has had an excellent season for Chelsea, and Chelsea have had an excellent season themselves, lots of excellence. My worry is, again, it's just so overpriced. 8.5 million for Mason Mount. I don't think he's guaranteed to be getting you assists in goals. I really don't. And don't get me wrong, he could be having a few shots from outside the box, which is good for points, but I think for 8.5 million, there's a lot of midfielders out there that I probably prefer to own over him. So I do struggle to justify that 8.5 million price tag. I love him as a player. I really, really do love him as a player. He works so hard, and I think we've missed having somebody like him that puts the team first above anything else. And I think with that midfield, actually, we've got a whole midfield full of them. But I think for 8.5 million, I'd struggle to pick him in my team. Saying that, when we move just a little bit further up, if Phil Foden gets the nod, which he bloody well should do, 9 million could be a snip. Oh my goodness, what a player he is. Phil Foden at 9 million, if he is definitely starting, and it looks like that in the friendlies, that he's definitely going to be starting, it'll be on the right side, not on the left there, I'd be all over him. Absolutely all over him. For 9 million, you're getting goals, you're getting assists, you're getting the star power that comes with him as well. He can destroy any team on his day. Literally any team, and I have no problem saying that whatsoever. Really, really like him. And like I said, if he gets the nod, and he will definitely play, then I'd be going for it. The only caveat with that is we have a lot of wingers that will be waiting to come on. We've got Rashford there, we've got Sancho there, we've got Greenwood there. So it looks to me like if we're struggling in a game and you want to change things, it will be Foden or, on the other side, Sterling that will be coming off. So I would just worry a little bit about his game time, and just worry a little bit about the fact that he could be substituted early if we need to make a change. But he's my dark horse to have a very, very good tournament this year. Raheem Sterling will then be on the left. I know it's the other way around. I wouldn't be touching Sterling at all. I think he's had a very, very poor season. He's 12 million. I can't see that at all, personally. 12 million for a player that's had such a poor season. Yes, he can have a good impact. But has he done well for England in tournaments? No, he hasn't. Apart from that ghost goal against Italy, he hasn't done very well. If I'm saying that the only good moment he's had is a goal that wasn't a goal, that kind of tells you everything, really, doesn't it? So the only person that I would be putting above Foden in this team for me is Harry Kane. 13.5 million, but you know exactly what you're getting. Player of the year for me this year in the Premier League. He's going to be on penalties. He's probably going to take some free kicks. He demands to have the ball, demands to be the focal point of this team. And if we are going to score goals in this group, which I think we could, he's going to be all over it, isn't he? So Harry Kane at 13.5 million. I do, when you look at it, I do struggle to think Lukaku could destroy his group, and Harry Kane is so much more expensive than he is. And that's when you start thinking, actually, is Harry Kane worth that money? I think if he performs as he did in the World Cup 3 years ago, then yes, he could be worth that money. But at the same time, we haven't really got a Panama in our group where we're going to score quite a few goals against them. Scotland could get to that level, but I mean, they're not as bad as Panama. So I do wonder whether Harry Kane is worth that extra over Lukaku. If you're picking both, fair enough. But I think for me, Lukaku is the person I'm going to be going for in terms of strikers. He is my priority in most teams. Harry Kane is a luxury in one of those teams, I think. So, yeah, it's worth having a look at. So, in general, for me, I think John Stones, Phil Foden and Harry Kane are my three that I would be looking at the most in this England team. Now, I hope I haven't spent too long talking about them. Moving on to Croatia. Croatia obviously have big history playing against England. They did beat England to stop us qualifying and getting through to the Euros not too long ago with Wally with the Brolly was our manager. And it is a completely different team now to what it was then. There is one person that's still in there, but the rest of them we'll have a bit of a chat about now. So Livakovic in goal. He is pretty much nailed in goal, I would say. 5.5 million in a group where he could keep one or two clean sheets is an awful value, especially when you consider, like I said, Pickford is 7 million. This is 1.5 million less. So I don't mind him at all. I think Barisic, I keep doing this, by the way. I keep getting the lefts and rights mixed up. It's because they're the other way around when I put them into my graphics. So Barisic is pretty much nailed at left back. Right back, though, I think is a bit of a lottery at the moment. Vrsaljko is most likely going to get the nod, but for 5 million for somebody that you think might get the nod, I think is a little bit too much. He will get forward and he will get those crosses into the striker, but I think for 5 million, I'd be struggling when you think he could turn up on the first day and be on the bench. Lovren, he is their mainstay in defence, the greatest defender in the world, self-proclaimed. Again, for 5 million, I think there are better 4.5 million options and better 5 million options, which we're going to get to in the next team. So I don't think I'd be going for Lovren, mainly because as well, attack and returns I don't see a lot of. They might keep one or two clean sheets, but that's it. And then Vida at 5 million next to him, I wouldn't say is nailed. I think there are going to be a few central defenders that might get in ahead of him based on their form for their clubs. So I think if I really wanted to pick one of these defenders, I would be going for Barisic at left back. When we move into midfield, they've got their very usual Brozovic and Modric double pivot at the back. Modric is a really interesting one. 7.5 million. If he is deployed a little bit deeper, which he has been at times, I don't think he's worth 7.5 million. Yes, he's at the heart of everything, but I wouldn't pay that money if it looks like he's going to be playing a little bit further back. But he could be playing in that number 10 role. If he's playing in that number 10 role, I really like him as an option. 7.5 million for a player that is going to be playing in that number 10 role with the pedigree that he's got as well. I would be quite inclined, I think, to have a look at him and keep him on my watch list. If he does play forward, that would most likely be instead of Pasalic, and then Kovacic would be playing in his role a little bit further back with Brozovic. So it's a little bit moving. We're going to have to wait and see what happens. My worry is that it could be fluid in the group stages. So it could be that he starts as a number 10 in the first game, actually most likely going to start a little bit further back against England and then move forward against someone like Scotland or Czech Republic, which means that it's going to be hard to trust whether to start Pasalic, which is next to him, who is an incredibly good player. You know, he plays that far forward role as well, but for 8 million, if you're spending 8 million on a player, you want to make sure they're playing. If you ask me now what I thought the formation would be, I think it will be this. I think it will be Pasalic moving forward and Modric and Brozovic going backwards. But when you've got a player like Kovacic, who is a great player, on the bench, I don't think they're going to be keeping him on the bench. So it'll probably be someone like Pasalic coming off or Modric going forward and Kovacic coming back. So it's a bit of a tough one with that midfield. Wingers less so. Vlasic and Perisic, great players. Perisic in particular, has had quite a few good seasons with Inter Milan. They are players that will definitely get forward, definitely get in the box. They're more like inside forwards than than wingers. Perisic, I should say, is a striker in FanTeam, so you need him to be getting goals, really. I think for 8 million as a striker, I think that's tough to justify personally. The only other thing I'll say is, though, their strikers, I think they're a bit all over the place up front as well. Kramaric has had the best domestic season out of all their strikers. He's done very, very well this year, but he's yet to be priced in the game. I don't think I'd be touching any strikers. I think if it were me, I'd be going for someone like Barisic, maybe in defence, if I fancied them to keep a couple clean sheets. And then I think I'd stick with someone like Luka Modric and hope that he might play that further forward role. He absolutely cleaned up in the Euros last time, so I think I would be not the Euro, sorry, in the World Cup. I think I would be on Modric if I had to have a choice out of all those midfielders. Moving on to the Czech Republic, and I tell you what, I don't know whether it's because I absolutely loved Pavel Nedved back in the day. I quite fancy the Czech Republic to do something in this tournament. Don't get me wrong, I don't expect them to win it, but I do expect them to have a bit of a go and to come out of this group stages with a bit of pride as well. Now, when you have a look at their team, there are some familiar faces. You've got Soufal, right back. I've actually had him in quite a lot of my drafts. I really like him. He's had a great season for West Ham, and you'll notice there's another player up top that's had a good season with West Ham as well. I do like the way he gets forward. I like his professionalism. I like how consistent he is as well. I think in a tournament where you've got to pick players for 3 games, I think consistency and professionalism is actually something really good to look for. Soufal will get forward. He plays pretty much the exact same role for the Czech Republic as he does for West Ham. He will get forward. He will cross the balls in. And he's very good in the tackle as well. He's not going to be getting you silly bookings all the time. So I do really like Soufal as an option. Vaklic is pretty much nailed in goal as well. I think the problem with picking a goalkeeper in this group that isn't Pickford is that you know they're not going to be keeping a clean sheet against England. Pretty much sure they're not going to be keeping a clean sheet in England. So I think if you're going to pick one, it's going to have to be one of those 4.5 million keepers. And Vaklic is not that bad of an option. Now, Saluska and Boril, they haven't been priced up in the game yet, and I don't think I'd be touching anyway. But if you did want a cheap defender that will be starting, it is Callas. He is playing for Bristol City, I believe. At the moment, he is their captain, and he will most probably be starting for them. So for 4 million, if you wanted a bit of an enabler and you keep him in your team and maybe play him against Scotland, I don't think that's that bad of an idea. Now, when we move forward, the one person you really want to look at is Thomas Solcek. Now, beginning of the year, everybody had him in their FPL team. Everybody had him. Everybody was talking about him. People were talking about kind of player of the season at one point because he was having that much of an impact on West Ham. He is a very, very good player for the Czech Republic. We know that. You know, he can score goals when he wants to. It's mainly from set pieces, obviously. He's only 5 million, which I think is a good price for him in this game. I think 5 million for a midfield that you know is going to play, that you know can score goals, is pretty good, actually. The only worry for me is how many set pieces they're going to get and whether they utilise him properly. That's my biggest worry. So I think for 5 million you can do a lot worse. I think he might be in quite a few teams because of the fact he plays in the Premier League. And I am a big person in thinking I hate it when players pick just players from the Premier League. And I always think if you can know just a little bit more about European football, you could pick players that you know will actually do better. And so you can almost get that step up. So there's that little bit inside me that's thinking, yeah, should I be picking Solcek? Because a lot of people will be picking him just because they know the Premier League. So I do like him as an option. I really do. I'm just a little bit worried about it. Derrida is somebody that will be getting forward. So for 5 million as well, if you don't want to go for someone like Solcek, you can go for somebody like Derrida. It's all about how many goals you think the Czech Republic are going to be scoring in these group stages. I think they might score 2 or 3, maybe 4. And if they do, Derrida will most probably be involved. The wingers, Jankto and Provod, are much of a muchness, to be perfectly honest. I don't think I'll be touching them. I won't be touching Kral either because he's more defensive midfield. Solcek as well, I must say, is just like he is for West Ham. He will be covering behind that back, not behind, in front of that back 4. So he won't be getting many goals from open play. Schick up front is an interesting option to look at. I think, well, I've talked about this before. For 4.5 million, you can have Yilmaz. So for 5 million, you're going to be playing the Czech Republic striker that might get you a goal, might not get you a goal. I think it's hard to justify. For me, if I was picking anybody from the Czech Republic, it would be Solcek or Soufal. And if I really wanted an enabler, I'd be going for Kalas. And then we move on to Scotland. Now, I struggle to see how Scotland are making it out of this group. I really like the Croatia team. I like the Czech Republic team. I'm not a massive fan of this Scotland team, unfortunately. I think they are missing some key pieces to make this a good side, and there's not a lot of Premier League quality in this team either. Not that you need to have top division quality, but I think it does help. If we have a look at the back, we've got Marshall, Derby keeper, 4.5 million. Considering, as we've just seen from the Czech Republic, if I go back, Vaklic is 4.5 million, and I fancy him maybe to keep at least one clean sheet. I don't fancy Scotland to keep any clean sheets. So 4.5 million, I think you could do a lot better than that. It is interesting, and it is worth saying that two of their best players are both left backs, so they make sure that those left backs both play. Andy Robertson and Kieran Tierney. Tierney will play in this back three, which completely limits him getting forward, unfortunately. But Robertson will be playing that left wing back, almost left wing role. So he is worth having a little bit of a look at if you fancy punting on Scotland. I'm finding it very, very hard to justify any of these players in my team, but you never know. They might, I mean, anybody can score against England on their day, so you might want to take a punt on one of them. But I think 5 million for a Scottish defender when you've got somebody like Soufal, yeah, like I said, I struggle to justify it. McGinn and McGregor will both be shielded in that back three. McGinn on his day can be a very good player. We've seen that for Aston Villa this year. O'Donnell will be playing the right wing back role. It is worth mentioning that McTominay, 4.5 million, he usually plays in defence for Scotland. Although he's a midfielder in real life, although he's a midfielder for Man United and he's had a very, very good season, he does play centre-back, so that limits him greatly. Hanley, though, at 4 million, again, you know, for me, I think for 4 million, yes, it's brilliant as an enabler, but I'd rather have somebody like Kalas that could keep a clean sheet, whereas Hanley, I don't really see it. Hanley also has a very, very... he has an ability to score an own goal and get, you know, yellow cards and red cards. I think it's a bit of a liability, personally. And then up front, it's all a bit of a mess, to be honest. We've got Forrest that's going to be playing on the wing, most probably, but he hasn't been priced up yet. Ryan Fraser could come in. We've got Che Adams that could come in. And Dykes we've got as well. I wouldn't be touching anybody from Scotland personally up front. I don't think I'd be touching anybody in midfield either. The only ones I would potentially be touching are Grant Hanley as an enabler, and maybe Andy Robertson if you fancy him in one of the games in the group stages. But I think it's quite a dangerous tactic to be picking him, knowing you're going to be having to take him out in you know, when he goes up against England in the last game, or when he goes up against Czech Republic or even Croatia. So I would be struggling to pick any of these players, I'm afraid. Sorry if you're Scottish. And then we move on to the best of Group D. Now, this is Motley Barnett's choice. He's friend of the video. He does some fantastic work on the FF Collective website, so do make sure you give that a visit. He has put together his 3-5-2 formation this week about who he would pick from these groups. Now, I can already see a big problem with this. Can you? That's right, he's picked 3 Scottish players. I would not be going anywhere near these Scottish players. So he's gone for O'Donnell, the right back, Robertson, the left back, and Christie in the middle. Yes, Christie gets forward, so I suppose if there's going to be goals, he might be involved. Robertson, I said before, he's probably the only one I would touch. O'Donnell, I don't think I would. They do have the Czech Republic up first, so I guess if they're going to do something, they might do it in that game, but I still wouldn't. Pickford, he's gone for in goal. I think I wouldn't be on Pickford. I think, as I said before, I'd be on Stones. So instead of O'Donnell, I'd probably pick Stones at the back, just because of that 1 million saving. I think in goal, if I have a look, I would probably go for Livakovic for 5.5 million. 1.5 million cheaper. It just makes sense. Soufal I like a lot. I said that earlier. He's also gone for the Solcek double up as well. I do really like that double up. Like I said, the only thing that worries me is that it's very Premier League, and it just feels to me like people that don't know what they're doing would pick those two. And I like trying to separate myself from those people that don't know what they're doing. So do I pick Soufal and Solcek knowing that actually half a dozen of my mates that don't have a clue what they're doing are going to do it? And that kind of stops me a little bit, but that could be completely wrong. Modric and Perisic, absolutely fine in the middle there. I do like the Croats a lot. Foden and Kane, he's gone for as well. I think, as I said, if Foden is nailed in this team and we believe that he's been given the nod, then yes, I think he could be the one to rise in this tournament and do very, very well. Harry Kane up top speaks for himself. I don't need to go into that. And then Schick as well. I don't mind that pick. The thing for me is that, yes, they've got Scotland away first. I say away, obviously, but they've got Scotland up first. So it's a good first fixture. But then all of a sudden they've got England and then they'll have Croatia. And it just, to me, looks a little bit like the upside is a bit limited, personally. If we go back through, I think strikers-wise, it's tough picking another striker. And I think that's why Motley Barnett's has gone for Schick, because you know he's going to be playing. He's only 5 million, and he had to pick somebody. So I can understand why he's picked him. Like I said, I do quite like... I very rarely don't agree with what Motley's done anyway. I think for me, like I said, I just wouldn't have Pickford. I wouldn't have any Scottish players. But Foden, Kane, Perisic, Modric, Solcek, Soufal, Schick, absolutely brilliant. So that brings us to the end of our video this time, talking you through Group D. We will be bringing you Group... Oh my God, I forgot my letters then. I will be bringing you Groups E and F, both out on Tuesday, and then we will be finished with our group predictions, and we'll be starting to talk about a little bit more about tactics, a little bit more about how to set up your entries to make sure you get as much money as possible as well. But if you have enjoyed this video, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you share us around as well. Put us on Twitter, tell people that you're enjoying our stream. So thank you very much for watching. Make sure you get on Draft Gym, make sure you get on FanTeam, and have a good time. Until next week, or Tuesday, oi oi.